Hello, Marshall. Welcome to existence. We are everywhere. You must reach truth. There is only truth in existence. Today on the Comic Book Report, Radiant Black Volume 2 Team Up. Stick around and check it out. Greetings all, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And as I mentioned, today we're jumping back into the world of Kyle Higgins' Radiant Black with Volume 2 Team Up. I had a ton of fun reading Volume 1 several months ago, and I knew that it was only a matter of time before I jumped back into this world, and wow, this volume was something else. But before we dive into today's review, I wanted to shout out our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking for comic book collected editions, definitely check out their website, and you can use my code, TheComicBookReport, at checkout to receive $2 off of your order. Please note, if you use this affiliate code or the affiliate link found in the description to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support the channel. I thank you very much for considering. Now let's jump into today's review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Kyle Higgins and illustrated by Costa. The comics in this volume were first published by Image Comics beginning in 2021. The volume itself collects Radiant Black issues 7 through 12. And finally, this trade paperback collection comes in at 176 pages. At this time, I'd like to give a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that trade paperback collection from Image Comics. It does have nice glossy print paper stock with a glued binding. Overall, it looks really identical to the Volume 1, which I did review on my channel some months ago. A very nice cover art. I really enjoy it. There's nothing really too crazy about it. The cover has a very Power Rangers feel, which is a ton of fun for the 90s kid in me. This book just has a ton of style, and you get the feel for that even from the cover of this book, the back cover as well. There's just something just really modern and sleek about this book. Overall, it is just a well put together standard size trade paperback, but it's a fun one, and I can't wait to really jump in and talk more about it. But first, let's take a look at that glued binding. Like I said, it's a really well-made trade paperback. The binding is really solid from what I've seen so far. Not a ton of gutter loss or anything like that. Again, just well put together, a really nice read. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into today's collection. So again, formatting wise, this is really identical to the Volume 1, so we're picking up right where it left off with these couple different Radiant characters, the Radiant Black, Red, Yellow, and Pink, facing off against this kind of aberrant form, this broken-faced Radiant guy that's attacking all of them. We're thrust right into the battle, and I'll admit it had been a few months since I read and reviewed that Volume 1, so it took me a second to just get my bearings back into this series, and starting with like a full-fledged battle with all of these characters was a really exciting way to do that. It felt like a very in medias res technique if you're just picking up Volume 2 after a break in reading. It took me, again, a minute to figure out where I was, who these characters are, what happened last time. But it was really fun to dive in. It started to all come back within a couple pages, but those first couple like action-packed moments really stood out to me. It really got me sucked back into this world, and I couldn't wait to see what happened next. The fight is really intense, even with 4-on-1, and we have the different characters kind of breaking apart into little factions. We have our main character, Marshall, the Radiant Black, going with the Radiant Pink and teleporting to all of these different locations, while Yellow and Red are off kind of trying to survive and do their own thing, taking down this alien version of the Radiant that was attacking them from the last volume. When the action begins to subside a bit, we do have a good interaction between Marshall and the Radiant Red, who attacked his friend toward the end of the last volume, and that was just a really incredible sequence of dialogue, trying to put their differences aside a little bit to just do the best they can to protect the planet and their situation around them. It's kind of fun for me to see all of the different Radiant characters who are clearly out of their element and still getting used to their powers, their costumes, and what the heck is even going on with these these suits. And that was a really fun way to start this collection. It went on for like an issue or two before we jumped in to more just kind of interesting day in the life of for Marshall, the Radiant Black. We have him kind of trying to superhero around, but public opinions and optics on him as a hero and his role as a vigilante are really, really divisive in the public. He deals with just kind of bullying, and he's dealing with trying to juggle his superheroic life with just his normal, regular life. He's clearly still dealing with problems from the last issue, including having his best friend in a coma, which takes a large portion of his time just trying to navigate all of that while trying to also figure out everything he's called to do as a hero. We have several sequences throughout this book that has Marshall visiting on his friend Nathan in the hospital, who's still in a coma from the events of the last volume. It's really sad. He talks to him, he sees him every day, just trying to keep his spirits up, believing that he can hear him where he is. He actually begins to see kind of an astral ghost form of him in his head that kind of talks to him. We have a couple memories and flashbacks of the boys as young children. It's really a gripping story. We have a lot, the deepening of that relationship and that dynamic between Marshall and Nathan, this time from Marshall's perspective. And again, it's really moving. We have a moment, though, where Marshall realizes that he wonders if Nathan is still alive on some level, if the Radiant might even have an aspect of him that can help bring his friend back from basically the brink of death. And when they're about to kind of pull the plug on him, he has the idea that with the Radiant, he can bring Nathan back. He tries to threaten the Radiant into talking to him and to kind of show him how to get his buddy back, because the suit has been quiet, radio silent to him since the events at the beginning of this volume, and he basically puts his life directly in danger, and it basically calls the Radiant forward, and he starts speaking to him, and there's basically, a way that he might be able to bring Nathan back, but it could cost him everything, and this alien presence warns him, are you willing to basically sacrifice, are you willing to basically give it up to bring your friend back, or for the opportunity of it? And that brings us into maybe my favorite issue of the whole book. The chapter 10, issue 10 of Radiant Black is an absolute art piece. It's absolutely stunning. It's kind of a modernistic, geometrically inspired issue where we have him kind of dimensionally tripping into these weird spaces and zones. You're kind of led to believe, are we in a black hole? Are we outside of conventional space? What is even going on? It's almost kind of like a hallucinogenic trip into this kind of dimensional soft spot, and we have him sort of guided by different figures and different characters as he goes deeper and deeper into this void, trying to find his friend Nathan and trying to find a way to bring him back. He is ultimately successful after he kind of accepts the truth about himself and the nature of him as a person and how he views himself, and it's a really, really great way to explore the innermost depths of our main character Marshall, while also enjoying a look at the dynamic between these two friends and what inspires and calls these characters to action, particularly Marshall. But the presentation of it all, again, with this really abstract looking feel, and you know it the second you start issue 10 that you're in for a treat. It really is just something kind of mind-bendingly beautiful, and this is really what makes this series such a standout to me in many ways, is the way it can experiment with the art form in ways that even after all these years, I'm still blown away by something entirely new. Such a treat to read, and a real high point in this volume for me. At any rate, after the events of issues 10, Nathan wakes up from his coma, and Marshall returns back to Earth, back to his own body, only to find that basically weeks and weeks have passed, and his personal life is in shambles. He's lost his job. Nathan's parents just hate him, believing he abandoned his best friend and them right when they were about to pull the plug, and he's just been missing in action, and the only people that know what really happened is him and his friend Nathan, and so there's a lot of just kind of repair and kind of reconstructing his personal life after this happened. There's also this level of seeing his friend recuperate, which is, again, something he's immensely thankful for, but just seeing him still so clearly trying to recover, there's also this weird dynamic about like who is the Radiant Black now, because Nathan found it first, but Marshall's been it longer, and is there going to be tensions there? And we're already seeing kind of ripples of that in this volume. I do suspect that future volumes will play with that dynamic even more. So many fun, just little odds and ends with that dynamic after issue 10. Really enjoyed that. And after that, we also have the introduction of a new, I guess we'll call them a villain. There's these people that kind of find some of this alien radiant tech and try to reverse engineer it and use it for their own purposes. We have this woman who kind of gets caught up in this and has kind of a music vibrational based kind of power suit that was designed. This is an interesting kind of an antagonist, I don't know, misunderstood anti-hero or villain. But that issue or two were really just fun toward the end of this collection. And then we also have an issue that explores kind of the origin of Radiant Pink, in the same way Volume 1 ended with that issue about the origin of Radiant Red. I think that this was such a fun way to do a collection like this, to end with sort of an origin of one of the other sub-characters. I know that Radiant Red issue from Volume 1 made me care so much more for that character, and in the same way, this Radiant Pink issue honestly did too. We get a little bit of Radiant Yellow kind of thrown into that issue, and that really rounds out the collection. And I think overall, I really had a blast. I think this volume maybe didn't have quite the same level of engagement as Volume 1 for me. I'm just a sucker for a good origin story, and the Volume 1 of Radiant Black is really a standout that I will always remember for its twists and turns and really what made it unique. But Volume 2 was still a really fun effort. I think it definitely captures a lot of what made Volume 1 great, and it's building that mythos, it's building the world out, it's really helping to deepen some of the supporting cast, and I still feel like we're kind of getting our bearings here with this volume. I think we're just getting started with this series, but I think that all the issues we have in this collection definitely help to build the lore of this series in a really beneficial way. I never really felt like there were many filler issues. Everything felt very important and essential for building the main story, and because there were all these little kind of mini arcs between kind of finishing up what happened at the end of Volume 1, all the stuff in the black hole, and then everything afterward, I feel like you get all of these like little mini stories in this one small trade paperback without really feeling rushed or mispaced, and I think that that is absolutely commendable. I think this collection really does deliver quite well. It also has a handful of extras, variant covers, which for a series this luscious is an absolutely great extra to have. There are some great covers here. I love the vibrancy of a lot of the just variant covers. They look really kind of techno-futuristic because of the nature of the radiance and the science fiction aspects of these series. But again, just super sleek, very cool. And then we have this kind of short comic, kind of Marshall's School of Business, all of these little like mini stories from Marshall's kind of perspective. They're almost like comic book newspaper kind of storytelling, just really quick, a little cheeky, but those were kind of just a fun little throw-in at the end of what was already a pretty solid volume. And we'll see all these extras here in a moment as I get to them here. And while we look through everything I just mentioned, I do want to again say the art is a real standout in this series from Costa. There's just this sleek, futuristic kind of look. It feels heavily computer-assisted in a way, but I really just think it's gorgeous. It's an absolutely perfect example of a modern superhero book that is captivating, vibrant, and exciting. I think that it has way more just eye-popping beauty than some of the superhero comics I see on the shelves these days. It really is something to behold. I really was impressed at just how much storytelling we get, how much mileage we get out of just these few short issues within this trade paperback. I think for those that have read Volume 1 and are on the fence about whether or not they should continue, I highly encourage it. I think that for the cost of entry for Volume 2, you do get a lot, and you'll have a better understanding on if this is a series you want to continue with. I, for one, am super excited to jump into Volume 3 and hopefully beyond. This really left a good impression on me, even if I wasn't quite as wowed as I was finishing Volume 1. And here is Volume 2 next to that Volume 1, so you can get an idea of what they'll look like in your collections. Like I said, a really sleek, modern design. I love the look of them. I think they're all going to look really nice once you collect them all. And I think now all that's left is to give Radiant Black Volume 2 a grade. For another eye-popping chapter in this incredible indie superhero series, The Comic Book Report is happy to give Radiant Black Volume 2 Team Up a B. This was a really solid sophomore effort for this series. I love what Kyle Higgins is doing here with Costa. I think that this is such a fun cross between a superhero comic and something like Power Rangers. It has me absolutely gripped, and I think asking all the right questions. I'm excited to see them further build the kind of lore and world building of this series, but overall the characters themselves have me absolutely gripped, and the visuals are stunning as ever. I do think that the extremely high bar set by Volume 1 was not quite matched for me, but there's still so much in here that make it worthwhile to continue, at least from my perspective. I'd love to hear in the comments if you're still reading Radiant Black. What do you think of the series? What did you think about it back then compared to now? Would love all that feedback. And thank you so much for watching. This has been the Comic Book Report. Always appreciate you guys. Please don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and maybe check out some of my other videos. Have a good one.